Take a look.
На самом деле, главный враг – это задача выследить врага, догнать его, превзойти, стать лучше, чем он.
It begins in California with a little girl raised by two moms. I also marched for equality. I like to think I've been defending freedom from an early age.
To which Cruz responded by writing, quote, excuse the language ahead of time, "Holy crap, perhaps a woke, emasculated military is not the best idea," followed by a second tweet that said it made American soldiers, quote, "into pansies." Wow. The backlash was swift. The veterans advocacy group Vote Vets tweeted, quote, "Ted Cruz attacks a U.S. Army soldier for telling her story. Says he prefers Russians because Ted Cruz is a sedition-loving traitor." And his colleague, Tammy Duckworth, a retired Army National Guard lieutenant colonel, who said, quote, "Perhaps a U.S. senator shouldn't suggest that the Russian military is better than the American military that protected him from an insurrection he helped foment." Joining us now, Charlie Sykes, editor-at-large of The Bulwark, and Paul Rieckhoff is here. He's the founder of Iraq and Afghanistan Veterans of America. He also hosts the podcast Independent Americans. Paul, when I saw this story, I told everyone I need to hear from Paul Rieckhoff today. Your thoughts?
Okay, where do we start with the latest asinine comments from Ted Cruz? Look, today's a day of contrast, Nicole. Today, President Biden awarded the Congressional Medal of Honor to Ralph Puckett, a 94-year-old hero who was on a walker, who went back and forth into a combat zone to save other people. He is the epitome of what Americans should be, someone who dedicated his life to America and was recognized. Then you've got Ted Cruz, who puts himself first, who is weak, who is cowardly, who continues to put our enemies' interests ahead of our own. It's a perfect contrast. Ted Cruz is why people hate politicians. I don't care what your political background. Enough already with Ted Cruz. I mean, people in Texas should be ashamed of him. All Americans should be ashamed of him. He's not a leader. He's a coward. And day after day, he continues to do things that helps our enemies after a group of people took over the Capitol. So, I mean, Ted Cruz should resign. Ted Cruz should go away. Ted Cruz should definitely keep the military out of his mouth and stay away from people like Tammy Duckworth, who stood up for America, now stands up for America on two prosthetic legs because she gave them in defense of this country. And Ted Cruz never wore the uniform or stood up for anybody.
You know, Paul, I'm really surprised, as someone who spent time in the party formerly known as Republicans, to see Republicans so brazenly trotting out anti-military messages. I mean, I think we talked when the Pentagon had to respond to Tucker Carlson's attacks. Now there's this asinine, as you said, attack from Ted Cruz. I mean, is there sort of I know that the military is representative of the country at large, but have you seen so much sort of military bashing from Republicans in your career? Never. And I think it cuts to the core of the implosion that's happening within the Republican Party, because nobody's off limits anymore. It doesn't matter who it is, even the American military. Now, there is the divide within the party, right? You've got somebody like Adam Kinzinger, who served in the military. You've got somebody like Liz Cheney. Then you've got Ted Cruz and people like Rand Paul, who blocked the 9/11 first responders bill and does all kinds of crazy stuff, right? There is a divide here. But this is the time for everybody in every party to stand up and be counted. Yesterday, we finally had a vote in the Congress, and we found out who stands with America and who stands with our enemies. Now we know. Either you're with us or you're against us. Party doesn't matter. National defense matters. Patriotism matters. And we're going to find out in the Senate who is with us and who is against us. And today, again, Ted Cruz continues to show he's not with America. He's with himself. He's not even with the Republican Party. And now he's with the Russians. So the sooner he's gone, the better, and we can get a better patriot from Texas. There's so many patriotic people in Texas. Can't you find somebody better than Ted Cruz to represent the great state of Texas? Please, do it for America. Yeah, I mean, Charlie, there are a lot of great people in Texas, and I have watched very closely as a lot of former veterans and former CIA officials, former national security folks have run at the beginning of their political careers as Democrats, not Republicans. Is the Republicans as a party that even pretends to care for national security and defense is over, right? A bygone era.
Well, it's something completely new. I mean, a lot of this is just Ted Cruz, who looks for new ways for people to hate him, which is extraordinary, because he was already pretty hated. Because, when I think of manly men, and super warriors, I think of Ted Cruz Nicole, I wish you could put together a fundraiser to have an arm wrestling contest between Tammy Duckworth and Ted Cruz, Mr. Macho Man, because Tammy Duckworth would kick his ass. Look, this is not about ideas. This is not about Republican versus Democrat at this point. It's all performative, and you're seeing these guys try to make themselves into something different, and they're turning themselves into cartoons. Josh Hawley's turning himself into a populist. Ted Cruz is turning himself into. I mean, what is this? Implying that the U.S. military members are pansies, using words like emasculate. Look, if I am Ted Cruz and I have gone through the transformation that he has over the last 4 years, I would stay pretty far away from the word emasculated. Really, after Donald Trump mocks his wife and he cravenly crawls back to be a Trump supporter. I mean, I'm sorry, you go to the dictionary under the word emasculated, and it's got a picture of Ted Cruz. And just simply because he wears a beard now and he walks around and he uses stuff like this and he tries to be the toughest guy on the block, that doesn't mean that it's going to be effective. But this is what's happened to our politics, that it is about this posturing. Who is the toughest? And if that means contrasting members of our military with Vladimir Putin's army, he's willing to do it. This is we've talked about the post-truth era of our politics. Ted Cruz and people like Josh Hawley and others, including even Marco Rubio and Rand Paul, they're also in the post-shame era of our politics. They're no longer even embarrassed. And by the way, who uses the word pansy anymore? I mean, it's offensive, but it's also lazy and dumb. And keep in mind that Ted Cruz is trying to remake himself from being the sort of the jerk demagogue from Harvard into now what grizzly warrior who calls other people pansies. It's so pathetic and it's so offensive. And even by Ted Cruz's standards, it's offensive.
It shouldn't go unnoted when I think as Paul said, nothing is sacred, that nothing is beyond. There's no shame for politicizing the military and invoking the Russians. It's just a remarkable story. I'm really glad to get to talk to both of you. Charlie Sykes, Paul Rykoff, my thanks to you both. Be sure to check out the latest episode of Paul's podcast, Independent Americans, focused on understanding and unpacking the latest cyber attacks here in the United States. I'm going to listen this weekend. Thank you both for spending time with us.